right, we have a quorum, so we'll start the October 1st meeting of the Fargo Planning Commission. Can I get a motion to approve the order of agenda?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Review the minutes of the September 3rd meeting. Give you a second for that. When you're ready, I'll take a motion for approval of the minutes of the September 3rd.
So move.
It's been moved. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. There will be no brown bag in October. Lunch, we will have one in November, so information on that to follow. All right, I'll open the public hearing. Items number 1, 4, and 7 are continued, and there'll be no action on those taken today. Is there anybody here that was thinking they were going to want to speak to those items? Items 1, 4, and 7? Okay, if not, we'll move on to item number 2 on the agenda, the continued hearing on the application of a request of a zoning change from SR2 single dwelling residential to SR3 single family residential. Donald.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Donald Kress with the Department of Planning and Development. As you recall from our September 3rd meeting, your commission heard a presentation from staff as well as presentations and testimony from the developer and some residents regarding the Timber Creek 3rd Edition zone change, and your commission voted unanimously to continue that to today. In the intervening time, on Tuesday, September 24th, we held a neighborhood meeting. We did notice the residents that we would, within a 300-foot radius of the subject property, just as we would for a hearing notice. We did get some attendance there, as well as the developer was there, Don Dabbert, and staff, and there was really just a discussion back and forth between both parties with some input from staff. The comments from the previous hearing, the meeting, and the comment letters we got are summarized in your staff report, the main points, and then all the individual documents we've gotten, letters and emails, are also attached to your packet. So those are there for your review. And then you would schedule this meeting for today, October 1st. And again, we have the developer and several of the neighborhood residents here hoping to address the commission. So just to recap the situation here, the location, we're on 47th Avenue South. There are 7 lots here. Here's I-29, here's 34th Street. There's 7 lots here that are undeveloped. They have never been developed. They're part of the Timber Creek 3rd Edition plat. They are currently zoned SR2. They are large lots, 10,400 square feet in area, and the SR2 would allow detached single-family dwellings. What the applicant proposes to do is to rezone them to SR3, which allows both detached single-family dwellings and duplexes. We'll talk about duplex in a minute here. These are some photos from last time, and then I went out this morning and took a couple more. We're standing on 47th Avenue facing west. Here are the subject properties. This little corner of the house is this little corner of this house right here, just as a locator. Here we're at the other end of the street facing back, and you see on the south side of the street there are narrower lots. They are approximately, well, they are half the width of these lots. They're 40 feet wide. Some of them have individual detached homes on them, and some farther down have twin homes on them. This is, here we're standing on the subject property, and we're looking at that line on the block where this is where the detached single-family homes are, and this is where the twin homes are. This is what these folks will be looking at no matter who builds on that north side. And then this is just based on some discussion we had with staff, just an illustrative one. This is standing on 32nd Street, and this is the apartment buildings here, and then this is 47th Street down here. But just to see the height of those apartment buildings, someone commented on how tall those apartment buildings, so I was out and just threw that photo in as a reference. And then just one more, take a look at the lot, comparative lot sizes. These are the subject properties, each 80 feet wide. And then across the street, 40-foot wide lots. Here they're detached dwellings. Here they're twin homes. And I had that picture of the break point between them. That was these two residences here. Now, a matter of concern in this discussion is what is a duplex and what does it look like? And in the discussion with the commission, we wanted to have some illustration of that, so we have a simple walkthrough of this. So this is a house in South Fargo. It's a real place. I just picked it off Google Maps. But as you look at it, you can tell that there are two residences in here, right? Because we've got the two big double garage doors, got doors on both sides. So you know there are two residences in there. But is it a twin home or a duplex? You can't tell by looking at it from the front or the oblique top here. What the difference would be is if it were a twin home, the structure actually has a lot line running down the middle. So this half of the residence is on one lot, and this half of the residence is on a different lot. So there's a lot line down the middle. If it were a duplex, which is what we're talking about here, the entire building is on a single lot. So this is all one building on one lot, and that is what the SR3 zoning allows when we talk about duplexes. It's a building with two residential units in it on one lot, just for clarification. These, we're going to just clip through these here. These were some graphics that the developer had provided in our last hearing, and they're also included in your packet. They're really just to show how a large building would fit on this lot. They're not necessarily representative of what the developer would be building at this point. They're just showing what that would be, types of buildings that would fit on a large lot. Going back to that difference between the twin homes and the duplex, so again, from the front, the outside, you can't tell. There are building and fire code differences internally, but you wouldn't be able to see those. So I think the visual aspect of what this looks like might be an aspect of the neighborhood's concerns. As we said, the comments are summarized in your packet there, and the comment letters are all included. Staff's recommendation is the same as last time, as stated in your staff report and shown on the screen. And Commissioner Gunkelman, if I just may do a little background here for folks who are not familiar with our process. The recommendation here is for your commission's approval. No matter whether your commission recommends to approve or deny this project, it will go forward to the city commission. Just automatically, there's no appeal or second step that is necessary. We, unless there be some mitigating factor against it, would probably be in November. We don't set a date at this meeting, and that again is a notice public hearing. Everyone within 300 feet of the property receives a letter. It's published in the form, and the city commission hearing is a public hearing just like this one where neighbors can testify in support or opposition to the project. So again, staff's recommendation is stated on the staff report and shown on the screen. That concludes staff's presentation. Thank you, commissioners.
Okay, board, any questions for Donald on this?
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
The people who are objecting to this, in reference to this map, where are they located?
Are the map in the packet there?
Yeah. Across the street, there are the 40-foot lots, some of which are twin homes, some single family.
Go back to.
And apparently to the north, there's green space, and to the east, there's green space.
Commissioner Morgan, I'm just going to take 1 second here. Thinking you might have some kind of question like this, we brought up the GIS. So here are the subject lots. You see these, ma'am? And then this is the green space. And then those maps in that are provided by Mr. Bring, who is, will probably speak to the commission today. And he made those maps. Those aren't staff maps. So I think I don't have that map in front of me right now, actually. But they are located in the area, generally in this area here. Some of them may be outside the actual 300 feet notice area, but they are in the relative neighborhood there. And I think Mr. Bring can address that in more detail.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions for Donald? All right, I'd like to invite the applicant to speak, Mr. Dabbert.
Good afternoon, Commission. Thank you for taking the time to hear this again. As Donald mentioned, we did have a neighborhood meeting last week to just address some further concerns. Really nothing new to add from what we provided last month. Ideally just to go from low density to low density, SR2 to SR3. Again, I want to stress the fact we don't have a project or product on the drawing boards to go immediately into the ground. We would like to have the ability to at least to explore a different market type with this duplex as a single owner, and either be someone living in one side and renting out the other, or different possibilities that way. I found it interesting that since some of the media just last week and some of the news stories, we have had a number of calls of people inquiring when these might be available because they'd be interested. They want to right size. They would like to have a smaller lot. Some people that have different parts of town, but certainly, it's a desirable neighborhood and area. And, so I think with affordability issues and everything, we have to find a better way to address the housing needs. And there's a housing need of all different price points and all different family types. And it's even something if there's an aging parent or even a younger child or even just someone renting next door. I don't pretend to know exactly who the end customer will be, but allowing something here certainly seems to make sense we're talking about 7 lots here. And, nothing, we're not trying to change the look or the complexity or the dynamics of the neighborhood. You have any questions for me?
Any questions for Mr. Dabbert? Rocky?
When were these first platted, these lots?
To the best of my recollection, I'm the second owner. I bought them from the original developer. I think I've owned them for about 4 years, so they may have been platted about 5 years going on sometime in there, depending on when the entitlement process started. I believe, though, they've been serviced for about 4 years.
Have they generally been for sale that whole time and been trying to do something on them? Or?
Yes, so by comparison, we purchased the north lots at the same time as we purchased the lots on the south side of 47th Avenue. All the lots, so the 40-foot lots on the south side of 47th Avenue were sold and built on immediately the first season. If that kind of gives you a comparison to either, price point or anything, what kind of, for that neighborhood. So the south sides went right away. Like I said, generally we were built out in that first year, and then these have also been marketed since that time.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? All right, I'd like to open the public comment period. Any from the public wish to speak for or against this?
Commissioners, we're going to shift the screen. Mr. Bring has some other things he wants to refer to. He's going to refer to the staff report on the screen.
Please introduce yourself to the commission.
My name is Matthew Bring. I live at 4706 34th Street. Let me pull up my petition here. Right there, 4706. That's my house. So I am kind of south and east from the lots in question. I wasn't here last time. I'll just note. I own that house. I lived in that house last year. I currently live in Omaha. I work for Social Security Administration as an administrative law judge down there. Kind of bounce back and forth between the offices in different locations, but my intention is to come back to that address hopefully next year. But for the time being, I own the house. My mother lives there, so I certainly am still affected by this project. All right, I don't want to go through the whole 6 pages that I've submitted. I think the 4th time I've submitted this now when you count this spring, a month ago and then now. I trust you've all read through it, given it some of your attention. I trust you've also looked at the 20-plus statements from the people in the neighborhood. I don't plan to go through every point I mentioned in my petition, but I just wanted to highlight a couple. If you did read it, one thing that you will no doubt see are references multiple times to the phrase burden of proof. From a legal perspective, I want to know this is a very important concept and one I do think needs particular attention. Essentially, what it boils down to is the person or the business requesting this change, they are the ones that have to show that it's necessary, it meets all the required parts of the law. Frankly, myself, the other residents, we don't have to do anything at all. It's their burden. Now, in terms of the factors that the applicant does need to establish, I think the most obvious they have failed to show is that the proposal won't negatively affect home values. I do want to note that I did review the staff report prior to this meeting. The language under that criteria, I'll just go to it. For factor 3, will the change adversely affect the condition or value of the property in the vicinity? This language from the city is new. I've never seen this before. I've gone through a handful of prior staff reports this year, past years. They're essentially attempting to redefine the word value now for this meeting, for this project. Never seen this before. And essentially saying that value now means instances that would affect the health, safety, and welfare of the property in the vicinity. Frankly, I don't think that definition of value is supported. It's not reflected in the Land Development Code. I don't know where it's from. I think it's pretty clear that the word value means value, monetary value. They have to show that their proposal will not negatively affect the value of the surrounding homes. And I don't see how a person could interpret the language of the Land Development Code any other way. Typically, what the city does in response to this factor is note, staff has no evidence to the contrary. Frankly, that's, not accurate here. We have the opinions of over 20 residents who live in the area, one of whom's a realtor. I also cited to a study that shows that changes like these would be likely to adversely affect the value. And once again, it's not our job to disprove this factor, it's their job to prove it, and I don't think they've offered any evidence showing it would not negatively affect the value. The other factor I wanted to note was the second, relating to public services, facilities, things like that. My understanding is the planning department simply has a formula relating to density. If the number of homes meet a certain number, they deem it to be acceptable. The fact remains that the vast majority of people who actually live on this street would say that it's already very crowded. There's limited parking already. Snow removal this last winter was extremely difficult. It might be the case everywhere in this city, but I can tell you it was very difficult over there. There was a number of cars on the street because they just don't all fit in the driveways. Plows would have to drive around them. The streets wouldn't be plowed. I saw multiple people stuck on that road because it wasn't getting plowed because of all the cars on the street. And we're going to add 14 more homes to that street according to this proposal. There's what the city's official point of view is based on a formula, and then there's a perspective of the people who actually live in this neighborhood. Want to also note on that factor that my understanding is one of the reasons PACES decided not to pursue the proposal this spring that would have switched from 7 lots to 9 lots on these same properties was that certain infrastructure wasn't in place, namely water service and sewer, and that they were going to have to make some changes to that because it was insufficient. But here we've got a proposal that's going to take these 7 lots and put 14 houses on them, or 14 homes. Looks to me like it's switching between twin home and duplex. It's just a legal fiction to try to get around this issue. The fact remains it wasn't sufficient before, but it's apparently sufficient now. Now, beyond the legal argument, I did want to address just a couple points raised at the prior meeting that we had last week, and also the meeting a month ago where I had a statement read, but I wasn't able to attend myself. Going back to the proposal earlier this year, I've repeatedly tried to argue the law, make my points relying on the Land Development Code as much as possible. I did so again in my petition at that time. I did it again at the meeting last week, and the commission meeting a month ago. There's this old legal saying that says when the facts are on your side, you pound the facts, and when the law's on your side, you pound the law. And when you have neither on your side, you pound the table. And frankly, I feel like I'm on the other side of somebody just pounding that table, because I keep trying to say, look, you got to meet this law. And in response, the tactic that the applicants have chosen to pursue is essentially just accuse the people who live in this neighborhood, including myself, of being biased. I work as a judge, and I had to read in the paper last week the phrase, Mr. Dabbert then asked whether Bring had a bias towards renters. You know, I take things like that very seriously. My livelihood depends on being fair and impartial to everybody. I'd like to just kind of keep to the facts and the law in this case. This isn't about anybody being biased about renters or people who can't have big homes or anything else like that. This is just people who live there wanting what's best for their neighborhood. You know, as I just mentioned, it was implied that people living there just want to keep out renters, duplexes, kind of implying that this is not a not in my backyard situation. You know, I want to note, I'm going to pull up Exhibit 24 here. This is a map I made. Those dark spots are everybody who submitted a letter in support of my opposition. They either emailed Mr. Kress, completed a form for me, emailed, one way or another, they've expressed that they are against this. Look at the homes right here. This is along 47th Street on the south side of that. 11 of the 21 letters were from people who live on the south side of that street. I got another one yesterday making it 12 people. I haven't updated it with that yet, but there also somebody lives on there. You know, as you can see from the map, these aren't huge homes. By my estimate, the average lot size along that street there of the people here objecting is about 5,000 square feet, which is roughly half of the size of the lots in question. You know, 3 of the people objecting actually live in twin homes themselves. So are we really going to suggest that the dozen or so residents objecting to this are biased against people in small homes or duplexes? I guess I just don't think so. This last spring when this came up, I talked to a lot of people in the neighborhood, both in Fox Run and in Timber Creek. And one of the things that honestly kind of surprised me was that a lot of people on 47th, there's more than one, mentioned to me that they knew, you know, we're going to be living in a smaller home, but we bought what we could afford, and we hoped that there would be some bigger houses to our north to kind of provide the stability for the neighborhood, bring all the, you know, home prices up, things like that. As Mr. Dabbert mentioned earlier, you know, the community demands all different types of housing. That's what Timber Creek was originally conceived of. There was going to be some smaller homes along here. There was going to be some medium-sized homes along the north side of 47th, some bigger homes back to the pond here. You know, it was mixed type of development. You know, they felt like this is going to help their home values, and you know, frankly, further splitting up the remaining single-family homes just kind of hurts their dream of living in a neighborhood with a variety of housing types. You know, I talked to one guy in particular who said, I used to live in a neighborhood that it ended up being split into a bunch of high-density twin homes and duplexes. It ended up being a bunch of rental homes, and we ended up leaving there. I bought a house in Timber Creek. This is somebody along 47th here in a smaller house. And he said, I was excited that we'd be in a neighborhood where there'd be some nicer homes. And he said, you know, now it looks like I'm just going to be facing the same thing I did before, and I'm starting all over. As for the people who live on the 47th Street up in Fox Run, as you can see, you know, about half of the people objecting live up there. At least 2 of those, Mr. Rott, Mr. Manley, I believe they're here to speak as well. My understanding, speaking with some of the residents on Fox Run, was that back when Timber Creek was originally proposed, one of the compromises they reached was that the houses to the north side of 47th were going to be single-family homes. This was supposed to be, I guess, a buffer of sorts along with that green space between some of the higher density houses and the apartments. I can't speak directly to that. I didn't live in this neighborhood when Timber Creek first was conceived of. That's my understanding based on speaking to people in Fox Run. I heard that from multiple people. And frankly, the biggest complaint to me by people in the Fox Run were They felt the developer sold one vision of what Timber Creek was going to be, and then when things didn't go perfectly, they decided to start changing things. I think that's really one of the biggest points I want to make today, is that a house, for most people, it's going to be the biggest purchase they ever make. You save for years to buy a house. I know I did. When you're ready, you got your savings, you choose your neighborhood. And I think people deserve to have some certainty of knowing where they're going to be living, what type of neighborhood it's going to be. If Mr. Dabbert wants to build duplexes, I have no problem with that, but he should do it in places already zoned for duplexes. Simple as that. In conclusion, I just want to note a few facts, and I believe all of these to be true. Roughly half of everybody living within 300 feet of this proposed change is opposed to this. Now, I haven't spoken to every single person. I don't know if the people who haven't objected are opposed or in favor. I'll continue to reach out to people, but I can tell you roughly half of the people don't want this. The majority of them are concerned about home values, lack of parking, and traffic. Many of the people in the neighborhood feel they purchased their home based on one understanding of the area, only to have that changed. The reason we're all here today is that the developer and Mr. Dabbert can't sell their lots, because simply the price of the lots plus the cost of the specials are too high, and they're going to try to split them up, divide those specials among what is essentially two residences, and try to get them sold. I don't know the price history of these lots. I checked Mr. Dabbert's website. I couldn't find these lots on his website today. Found an old copy of it, so it looks like they were selling for about a little over $50,000. You know, if he decided to sell these lots for $30,000, he'd probably sell them tomorrow. Now, he'd probably lose money on it too, but that's not the fault of the people who live in the neighborhood. You know, they made a risk. Sometimes those risks pay off, sometimes they don't. You know, I think Paces and Mr. Dabbert are both very successful. It's not the burden of the people who live in the neighborhood to pay for their bad bets, frankly. Continuing on with a couple more facts, there is a process in place to make changes like this. The applicants haven't really offered much of any evidence of any of the factors involved. Instead, they've essentially argued that we're just biased against certain kind of people. I believe the factors that we do have in place in the Land Development Code are not met. Your vote, in essence, comes down to one of two choices. You can vote with the applicants, who were responsible for developing this entire neighborhood, underestimated demand, and now want to change things to allow them to make some money. Or two, you can vote with the people who actually know the neighborhood best, people who actually live there, and the people who believe that this plan is bad for the neighborhood. It's really as simple as that. Are we as a city going to keep deferring to the wishes of the developers? Or are we going to stand up and say, you know what? Our citizens matter and their wishes matter. Thank you.
Any questions for Mr. Brink?
I have a question. Wasn't there a proposal to put a buffer of some sort to the north there? It seems like there's quite a wide green space as it is. I don't understand the objections to that block on the north if there is a buffer and also the green space.
I honestly, I can't really speak to that because I wasn't involved at that point. I can only tell you what the people in Fox Run understood. There is a green space there, as you can see from the map. It's about the width of a standard house lot. I believe there's some power lines that go through there. Sure, there is a buffer. I can't speak for what they're telling me. The primary concerns there were essentially they feel the developer is not really playing by the rules, and they fear that it's going to negatively affect their housing prices because they're going to be backing to a bunch of twin homes or duplexes as opposed to a single family home with the big backyard.
My concern also is with the people that live to the south. It seems like they are comparable in a way. They have small lots and some of them are twin homes. Basically commenting that they don't want to live across the street for someone that might be in the same situation.
Well, I don't know if I'd phrase it that way. as I mentioned just a minute ago, I think these are people who bought the house that they could afford, hoping that, yeah, they may have one of the smaller houses in the neighborhood, but that's a good place to be, that the other houses are gonna kind of bring up the overall character of the neighborhood. They're not saying they don't want the type of people who live in twin homes or duplexes to live in their neighborhood. They're saying, we'd like some big houses in our neighborhood too, and we're not gonna have that. It's just gonna be a bunch of small houses. They wanted to kind of, this was their way of getting into a nice neighborhood. You know, not everybody can afford to live in every neighborhood, and they were hoping, I'm gonna be one of the smaller houses, but I'm gonna be surrounded by a lot of big houses, and that's a good place to be. And I think they really feel like that's not gonna be the case anymore.
Another question from myself would be, when did you buy your house?
June of last summer.
Okay, so you knew what was down the block because everything else was built in 15 and 16. And you also had the apartment building, which was built in 2014.
Correct.
So you knew what was there. It's
I did.
kind of interesting to me. You know what you were getting into.
Well, you know what? I did know what I was getting into with respect to the apartments, with respect to the houses on the south side of 47th. I didn't know what I was getting into on the north side of 47th. Those, at that time, were all single-family homes. These lots down here, those used to be twice as big. They changed, was it last year? Yeah, last year, just before I bought the house. I had assumed, based on the zoning, that these lots were going to be single-family homes on a 10,000-foot lot. You know, every development in Fargo, for the most part, kind of has a mix of different housing types. We have small houses, we have big houses, we have medium houses. That's what I assumed this neighborhood was going to be. These houses are going to be bigger in theory. These houses are going to be bigger along here. These houses are going to be little. These houses are going to be more medium-sized houses. That's what I had assumed I had gotten myself into. What I'm afraid of is here we've got now these smaller houses. Now let's think about what's going to happen when these are all duplexes. Now we got this lot here. Well, they're on a street full of duplexes. Going to have to change that one. Well, now we got to change all these. And we've already tried to change these ones down here. Where does it stop? You know, what I thought I got myself into is not at all what they're proposing.
Okay, one question for Eric would be the question of the burden of proof that Mr. Brink brings up. Where do we fall in that?
Right, well, certainly that's in the Land Development Code, as Mr. Bring quotes it. I mean, but and so the burden is on the applicant to prove the case. But there is a staff that provides guidance and input and a factual analysis, and that's part of what you're basing your decision upon as well. So really, in effect, the purpose of the switching of the identification of the burden of proof is just to inform the applicant that you know, in the event they are not successful because something wasn't introduced, they can't complain about it. It doesn't mean that the staff isn't able to provide input and guidance for the Planning Commission and subsequently the City Commission as part of the process.
Okay, any other questions for Mr. Brink? Any other person in the audience wish to speak for or against this project?
I'd just like to say one thing. The word assumption has been used many times. It seems like assumption is a really weak term in terms of what the potential is for anything to happen other than, you know, some major change in zoning. But even within your practice of the law, when people come to you, you can't base their testimony on their assumptions.
I'm not sure that's the best way to put it. You know, yeah, there's always an assumption, but the assumption is an informed assumption based on what the law is and what the current facts are. You know, I had the available facts that I had, and based on that, I made a judgment call. You can call it an assumption, I felt it to be an informed assumption. I did not believe that they would come back and try to change this. I don't know what else to say.
Right.
Thank you.
Hi, and thanks for having me here today. My name is Jay Manley, and I live on 46th Avenue South in Fargo. I am a little bit different than Mr. Bring. I bought my house back in 1998, 21 years ago. I have lived there, I've raised my family there, I still live there, and I plan to live there well into my retirement, and hopefully that's a long, long life I have ahead of me. Many of you probably don't remember, but we were given back in 1998 a layout of what this land would look like to the south of us. It was quite detailed. It showed some retail, it showed some high-density homes, and it showed on the 47th Avenue side, single-family homes. I made my purchasing decision in 1998 based on that. Since then, we have been here as a neighborhood many different times. If you remember, actually the last time I was here was during the whole Walmart fiasco, when Walmart was trying to get put in there. I wasn't trying to block Walmart. I'm not anti-business. I run a business myself. I run several of them. I just asked them, don't destroy a neighborhood, move kitty corner across the interstate. Guess what? They did. I'm not asking you to make a major change to this neighborhood. I'm saying keep the neighborhood as it was initially planned. This is a planning commission. You guys come up with plans for a neighborhood for a reason, so that people have faith in what they're purchasing. They have faith in the neighborhoods that they're going to raise their children in, and it makes a difference to live in that neighborhood. I realize that he made a bad business decision. I've done the same. Just because he made a bad business decision and is going to potentially lose some money doesn't mean that I should pay for his mistakes. When I purchase a lot, when I have a house, I expect that neighborhood to be something like it was back in that initial planning that I was given by this very board. I expect it to be that in the future. We've already flexed with lots of changes. The road layouts have changed, the way that the park was going to be in there has changed. Everything about that neighborhood has changed in 21 years. We've kind of rolled with it to many extents, other than the Walmart deal. I'll admit we fought that a little bit. We're asking for you now, deny this. That's all we're asking. The lots are there. If he has people that are interested, he already has lots on the west side that he could put people in. They're already open, they're already zoned that way. Fill those first. There's no reason to change these right now. Thanks for your time. I really appreciate it.
Any questions for Mr. Manley? Anybody else wish to speak for or against the project?
Thank you. My name is Kelly Rott. I live on 46th Avenue in Fox Run. That's across the green space from the kitty corner from these projected lot changes. I've been there 12 years. It was cornfields and soybean fields across the way when it was first started. It was beautiful. It's still a very nice neighborhood. We fought very hard when they first brought the development to us. It was going to be a lot more apartment buildings. Compromises were made on both sides, the homeowners, the developers. Okay, so we've fought, we got the low density, the high density, just like in neighborhoods, just all over town. Now, my profession, I happen to own a real estate company, and to address a couple of your questions that you had that I don't think were answered properly. The reason that, in my opinion, as a realtor, that the homes, the people that live across the street with the small lot homes, the reason they don't want it changed to the small lot homes like they have is they want their values of their homes to rise. If you keep it the same, make the changes and load the half lots or double homes on these one lots, you're going to increase the density. those homes will not increase in value. If you look around in all the neighborhoods around the town where you have twin homes across the streets from single-family homes, those homes are worth a little bit more than the ones that have twin homes on both sides of the street. It's a fact. Now, if you were to change these density and change these lots to the R3 before any of the homes, single-family homes, were sold, I would say, well, now you have a consideration to think about. Yeah, it might have to happen. Been 4 years, haven't sold any. What about the people that bought homes, that built right next door to the ones that you want to change? Their value is definitely going down if this is changed. Inevitable. That you can't stop that if you change to R3 on this row of homes. The other side that I feel that if you change these 7, there is nothing that if anybody else brought a change for any of the other lots in the area, you have to do it, or you are opening yourself up to a lawsuit. Why one and not the other? Why one builder, what not the other builder? Now, it was also stated that this is the second owner of these lots. They bought them probably at profit for the first owner. Maybe they made a poor investment. Maybe they should petition to the city to lower the specials. Probably won't happen. Maybe they should just take their losses and move on. That's all I have. Thank you.
Any questions for Mr. Rod?
I have a question.
Yeah.
As a realtor, wouldn't you say that part of the problem of selling those lots for single-family dwellings may be the homes across the street, if you're talking about value?
No, it's the specials. It's plain and simple, the specials. We run across that every day with new home building.
But weren't you saying that, that to increase the value, the people on the south side would like to see single-family homes?
If
But
you,
don't you think that the people that would build single-family homes would be looking to what's across the street from them?
mm-hmm.
And don't you think that that's a potential problem as to why they haven't been sold?
I believe that the reason that there's nothing being built on these lots is they are higher priced than lots in other neighborhoods. There's plenty of other neighborhoods in West Fargo and Fargo that are new developments. They're building. Why isn't this one? They have twin home. All the other neighborhoods have twin homes right across the street. It's the same plan that you have all over the city in neighborhoods. And then I think there was one other question you had about the size of the green space between this and that. There's a major power line that runs through this. You have a 75 feet easement on each side from the center of the power lines and both sides, so there's a 150-foot wide easement that nothing can be built on. And so it's walk space, green space, lots of dogs, lots of people, lots of bikes. It's a very nice neighborhood. But like Mr. Bring brought up, snow removal is a big problem on that street. There's a lot of vehicles parked there, and we only have it half built.
Any other questions? Scott?
Yeah, you mentioned being concerned about the people that built on either side of these lots. And there's also a document in here that suggests that those are both likely rentals.
I don't know. Haven't met the people.
Okay.
I can't say one way or the other.
Know.
I don't know.
You?
Yes, my understanding is, here, sorry.
Yeah.
Exhibit 26. My understanding is that, you guys can see if I move my mouse around here?
Yeah.
Okay, my understanding is this house are both owned by Meridian Mortgage, which is, my understanding is they're associated with Jordahl. Those are both rental houses. This exhibit, the Rs are houses that I believe for one reason or another are rentals. I know that was a question Commissioner Morgan raised at the first meeting, is asking which ones are rentals. I believe those are to at least the best estimate I have, those are the ones currently rentals.
Do we know how long those houses have been built, and when were they first built? Do you know?
2015.
2015? And
I don't know for sure. It would be within the last, 3 years, 4 years or so, I believe.
And we had, I think the previous person that testified suggested that for a fact that their lower value for, if you had twin homes across from other twin homes, or these are just more expensive than other places in town that are across from twin homes. Do we know that for sure?
I'm going to defer to Mr. Roth's opinion as a commercial realtor. Not my area of expertise. I can tell you,
But it's just, it's hard for me to hear somebody state for fact when I don't have any facts to.
I agree.
so.
He says that's a fact. That's a fact. To him, that's his opinion, obviously.
Okay.
That's what he believes. I can tell you one other thing. That's what the neighborhood believes. And frankly, that's what the applicant has to show the opposite of. We don't have to show it will hurt values. They have to show it will not hurt values. Offering no evidence of any kind, if both sides offer no evidence, you have to decide with us. That's what burden of proof is. So Mr. Johnson will tell you, if you talk to him after the meeting today, burden of proof means they've got to show it.
All right. Let's see. Anybody else from the public wish to speak for or against? All right. Mr. Dabber, do you have anything to rebut? Okay. Any other additional discussion?
I have a question on the infrastructure. So the infrastructure is staying as it is, and it will support.
Yes, Commissioners, if I could address that. That's one thing I left out of my difference between twin homes and duplexes. I didn't realize we we're going to get into the technical part of this. Brian, can we go back to my screen, please? So this just picks up on something that Mr. Bring asked about. What he's referring to was the plan to split that down. Well, it was originally into 14 lots and then into 9, those 7 lots. That was, I believe that was Timber Creek 10th edition. It was withdrawn by the applicant on the February 5th, 2019 Planning Commission agenda. They didn't go forward with it. Here's the difference. We're going to go back to our graphic here. It has to do with the way the services are divided. So the services are in the street. The water and sewer is in the street, sized for that area. So if you're a twin home, like you are now, you have to have, or if you're a twin home, as in this graphic here, you have to have a separate water and sewer service to each side, because each side is a separate residence. Okay? If you have a duplex, there's just one service that comes in and serves both sides. One of the things that, as Mr. Bring alluded to, may have deterred that, that previous one, and also one on 34th Street, was the cost and the effort of tearing up the street to separate the services. If you have detailed technical questions, I'd refer you to Brenda Deering, our city engineer. I don't do that part, but I do know that that is an effort, and the city tries to not have its street torn up any more than absolutely necessary, and that cost is borne by the developer. The city doesn't dig up the street for the developer. That's borne by the developer. And so that would have to be, so it's not necessarily insufficiency in the overall capacity of the infrastructure, it's how it serves the individual units. And so if you have the duplex, as could be the case here, if that zone change goes through, there would only be one service, which is already there. Each lot would already be served with one water and sewer service that was stubbed in, I believe, when it was installed. Is that correct? Yes. Thank you, ma'am.
Any other
Thank you, Donald.
questions for Donald or Mary?
Thank you. I just have a question for maybe Mr. Dabbert, but do you have a price range on these?
Yes, thank you. Again, we don't have a specific product in mind, but the lowest, if you will, price point or our starting point of our homes are about $250 to $275. The structures themselves would be going on here would be north of $500,000 as one building, because they will be one building on one lot. They will be a duplex if we'd have two separate entrances. So the overall, you'd say assessed value would be north of 500,000.
Okay, thank you. And I would just add that I'm a residential realtor, and I think the way to figure out what this kind of housing does is to go through your city assessor and make a comparison and see if there's any difference. But I would probably argue that there isn't personally, but that was just an opinion as well.
Rocky.
I have a question maybe to echo our resident realtor over there on the commission. I don't see a lot of difference in the two single-family zoning things as far as value, but I did have a question on the value section in the staff report, because I thought one of the testifiers made a good point. You know, in these packets, it's a staff report. We have things from Public Works in there sometimes, some from engineering. I feel like in the value section, it only talks about the planning department and kind of kicks the can that they're not the assessor. You know, when there's a staff report that's asking about value, if we need the assessor, is that an option for us? Because I mean, I feel like this section leaves us hanging a little bit.
And that question off to Ms. Crutchfield.
Yeah, if I may, I helped craft this section of the staff report with Donald, and I think maybe as a planning representative in terms of the discipline of city planning, and I'll try not to get too far on a ledge because Eric might pull me back, but it's pretty much unconstitutional to equivalate cost, monetary, fiscal impact, and land use value as it relates to police powers and zoning. So police powers and zoning, and if you want to go to kind of court cases on that, is very much mandated, or the oversight of that is related to nuisances. So if you look at the history of zoning law and how it relates to jurisdictional powers, it's related to nuisances. So not to get too academic, but if we go all the way back to the first original zoning ordinance in our country, it's related to nuisances like industrial uses, you know, back in the day with pig farms and brick plants and tenement housing, et cetera. So in the history of zoning law, and I use that word lightly because I'm sitting next to an attorney, but when it comes down to value, we're not allowed to talk about fiscal monetary value. We're only talking about as it relates to the use itself, the land use itself, and the predicated nuisances that one might foresee.
I appreciate that. Maybe a question for Eric on here too. So number 3 under here, when it says, will the approval of zoning change adversely affect the value of the property in the vicinity? When testifiers in neighborhoods talk about changing their monetary property value, is that not supposed to be a consideration for us?
Well, I mean, I think you can take those arguments and put whatever weight you feel appropriate. I mean, if it helps, I'll just piggyback a little bit on what Nicole just said, which is that I think it's helpful if you look at this from the standpoint of a bigger picture of determining compatible uses, which is the whole Euclidean zoning concept that Nicole is referring to. And so it helps to look at some extreme cases. So if there's the classic example is a slaughtering plant moving across the street from a residential zoning district, would that impair the condition or value of adjacent properties? It's a little more obvious case. It gets a lot harder when the change in use is, from one residential zone to another. It's harder to make the case that it's going to negatively impact it. And you end up seeing in a staff report frequently, we don't have any evidence that it does negatively impact. And Mr. Bring would then say, well, if you don't have any evidence that it would negatively impact, the applicant loses every time. But the reality is that that factor is up to the decision maker to make that decision. It's based upon a weighing of of the evidence in front of you, which in many cases is simply looking at the neighborhood and seeing how do you measure that when it's not quantifiable in any precise term. That's what Nicole is saying, that you can't quantify it. But you can look at it and say, well, this is a minor zoning change, and I'm not trying to urge you to do one way or the other, but you can look at it. I think it does help to compare it to a more extreme zoning change and say, oh, okay, compared to that, I can see why this has more or less of an impact on the neighborhood. Does that help?
A little bit.
All right, commissioners, any other discussion? Are we ready to act? Do I have a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to accept the findings and recommendations of staff and to move to recommend approval to the city commission.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Roll call vote, please.
Schneider,
Aye.
Sherling,
Yes.
Holtz,
Aye.
Stoffren,
No.
Morgan,
Aye.
Tassa,
Aye.
Gunkelman.
Aye. Motion carries.
Thank you, Commissioners. It's nearly 4 o'clock, sir. It's nearly 4 o'clock, sir.
Okay, we'll take a 5-minute break. One again. Item number 3 on the agenda. Kylie, why don't you take over?
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Item number 3, Harwood's Edition, is located at 701 University Drive North and 702 12th Street North. The applicant, Chris Hawley Architects, is requesting a zone change from downtown mixed use with a conditional overlay to downtown mixed use. The applicant is proposing to renovate the existing site for a restaurant and a parking lot. Due to the existing conditions of the site, the applicant is requesting to remove the conditional overlay. The current conditional overlay restricts the building and parking lot setback to the north to 10 feet, the height of the building to 45 feet, as well as additional screening requirements for the parking lot. The applicant has provided staff with a site plan of the property showing the addition and the parking lot being set back 6 feet from the north property line and a landscape buffer between the parking lot and the property to the north. The addition will be 2 stories as well. Staff has received 1 inquiry regarding the zone change with concerns to parking, which was emailed to you prior to this meeting. It was also a laydown item for you as well today. Staff explained that the current existing zone does not have any parking requirements. Based on the zone change criteria of the LDC, staff is recommending approval of the zone change. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Any questions for Kylie? Commissioners? See no questions?
Kylie, so you don't mind.
I don't mind.
So because it's downtown mixed use, there's no parking requirements at all?
That's correct.
In terms of, but it's not to say that that you can't acknowledge that would be an issue for parking.
What do you mean by acknowledge there would be an issue?
Well,
Just due to the constraints of
yeah,
University.
you got a building that's gonna have a lot of customers and very little space for parking. Where would we anticipate that to happen? Even though it's zoned as downtown mixed use, it's not like they got a parking lot within, that's a public lot in a close distance, and there isn't any parking along that road, is there?
Not along 7th or University, but I believe you can park along 12th Street.
12th Street. Okay.
Rocky?
Kylie, I have a question. The map in our packet. My understanding is these 2 lots are already zoned DMU, right? They just have a conditional overlay.
That's correct, yes.
The map in our packet still has them zoned general commercial and
In MR.
MR. Just want to confirm that we're just talking about the conditional overlay.
Are you looking, there was an old staff report that was provided as part of the laydown item, and so that they included the staff report from 2017.
Oh, okay, that's what I'm looking at.
Okay, yeah.
Thank you. My confusion.
You accusing me of not getting up to date.
I know.
All right, any other questions for Kylie? I think, Scott, this comes down to a little bit of being a good neighbor. And the letter that we got is also across the street from Fargo Brewing Company. So it may be that when this gets off the ground, that just a good neighbor would be trying to keep their tenants in their parking lot and on the street, so. All right, we'll open it up to the applicant to speak.
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm Chris Hawley with Chris Hawley Architects. I'm the owner's rep on this project and also one of the project managers for this project. This is not a new project. This is kind of an old project, and this 2 years ago, we've kind of gone through the steps on this to try and get this project started someday. And one of the steps that were taken was to get the DMU approved. And I know at that time it was really early and it was really preliminary. And as you move through a project like this, you probably learn more as a part of the plan review process. And one of the things that the conditional overlay that was thrown on this DMU piece was to protect the residential component to this. And so the 10 feet, you know, DMU, if you dig into that, you know, the setback requirement is actually 0 feet, right? And I think everybody knew that 0 feet is not the right thing for this project. And so 10 feet was put on the project as a way to sort of maybe manage the residential protection standards. Well, fast forward, we actually went through the residential protection standards special process and got approval and a waiver to go to 6 feet. And the reason for 6 feet is because, and that was approved by the city of Fargo. The reason for 6 feet is that if you go to 10 feet, this building is a non-compliant building. You actually can't get travel distances far enough away for 2 stairs to exit this building for fire safety reasons. And so as a part of the plan review process, the building was kind of dictated by making it compliant. And you know, as you can see, the existing building is it's tough, right? It's bookended on 3 sides, and really the only side that you can do anything with is on this east side. And so you know, our thoughts were, you know, this 6 feet is sort of a great middle ground between 0 feet and 10 feet, and it makes a building comply at the end of the day. So, you know, one of the things that's a part of this is that, you know, this was never a discussion about the parking. It was more a discussion about protecting the residential neighborhoods. Since the DMU approval, this particular owner has gone on to say, hey, we're gonna tear down the old house to the east and create more parking and take a loss on that piece, right? So that we can, because I think they realize too that it's a benefit to their business. And so they've carved out and are going to invest in doing the 9 spots that you see on the site plan. This is, in addition to that, this is not a part of today's discussion, but probably will be coming with some further meetings. But this particular owner is actually looking to accommodate more parking in a future discussion. So, you know, fast forward 6 months from now, we'll probably be standing here again, looking to carve out some additional parking, because I think they see the benefit for their business as well. So it's definitely their concern as well. So,
Any other questions for Mr. Holly? All right, I'll open it up to the public for comment.
Good afternoon. My name is Aubrey Zuger. I'm an attorney at Frederickson and Byron, and I represent Spartan Nash with respect to this issue. Spartan Nash owns the grocery store, the Family Fare, that's located on University Drive. And Spartan Nash has concerns with respect to whether the removal of the conditional overlay will increase the parking problems in the area. There's been some discussion regarding the 2017 zoning change. Some suggestion that that was more about the residential issues than about parking. Attached to the letter that I had submitted to the commission was the 2017 staff report. That staff report makes clear that parking is an issue with respect to this property, and it was something that was addressed in 2017 when the initial zoning change was considered. I appreciate that the DMU designation doesn't address a parking issue. But in 2017, when that zoning change was made, the representation was that there was going to be this conditional overlay, which would set the new building back the 10 feet. So although DMU designation doesn't address parking, the conditional overlay was put in place at the same time as that zoning change was made. I think it goes without saying that a building the size of what's anticipated is going to require substantial parking. The projected restaurant includes a substantial rooftop event space. The drawings indicate that that could hold dozens and dozens of people. It appears to be probably over 50. It's a multi-level building with the capacity to have many patrons. 9 parking spots for staff working at the restaurant, vendors, suppliers, and customers is going to be plainly inadequate. There is some limited parking on 12th Street North. That's depicted on the map up there. The street is not wide, There is an apartment building immediately to the north. You can see that designated next to University Drive. So you already have a dense residential area, and the road is not big. That begs the question, where will these people park, especially considering the size of the proposed restaurant? Family Fare has been dealing with this issue with respect to another establishment in the area. That establishment, which is immediately to the south, the Fargo Brewing Company, their patrons park in the Fargo, or in the Family Fare parking lot. That has created significant problems, including that those patrons have blocked the single loading dock that allows for the grocery store to get their product. In addition, they parked their tour buses there. They have taken over large parts of the parking lot. The suggestion that another restaurant of this significant size being in the area with 9 parking spots in total won't impact the Family Fare store, I think, is misguided. I do appreciate that they are currently zoned for DMU, but that was done with the conditional overlay, and that conditional overlay should remain. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Good questions, commissioners? Scott?
So with regard to Spartan Nash and their parking lot, have you had any discussions with Fargo Brewing or with this applicant about the possibility of working some kind of an arrangement out where we see this happen in other places around the city where they've come to an agreement on how they might be able to negotiate use and accommodate each other? Has there been any discussions at all?
I think that the Family Fare manager did have some negotiations or discussions with the brewing company to try to be, as you guys had indicated, a good neighbor. The problem is that the initial accommodations grew so much that they were losing their parking lot, and they really actually had like a large truck come to make a delivery that couldn't be delivered because the loading dock is blocked. And so it's kind of one of those situations where they do need the parking lot in order to make sure they can get their product delivered, and those trucks and those vendors come at varying times. So I think there was an attempt to be the good neighbor and to try to accommodate the restaurant or the Fargo Brewing Company. I think they like seeing development in the area, but it has to be thoughtful development. You know, business has to take into account what business needs they have. And so they can't give up the area near the loading dock, which is the area closest to the Fargo Brewing Company.
I understand that, and aside from that, we talked about being a good neighbor and all that, and trying to find a way to work it out there. I can see where that's a major problem if they're blocking the ability to get in and out of the grocery store for deliveries. But I've never been by there when the parking lot has been packed either.
The grocery store parking lot?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that there have been instances when the events have been large enough where it's taking over the parking lot. And so I think it varies. You know, the Fargo Brewing Company has capacity now to have large events. The new restaurant would have the capacity to have, you know, I'd inquired of the city what the maximum capacity would be for this restaurant as it's currently built. My suggestion is it's going to be in excess of 100 customers. So if you have 2 large venues, both competing for no parking space in that little area, it's going to continue to get worse and worse. And so Family Fare has the ownership rights and the leasing rights to the parking lot at issue. And so I think while they would like to be a good neighbor, they also want to be able to operate their business effectively. And they have a business that has a lot of elderly people who shop there, so they do need close parking to buy their groceries.
Yeah, and I understand that. Just seems that there would be some way that you could negotiate an agreement with somebody. And it is your right. It's your, you know, it's your Spartan Nash property, and I get that. But I would also expect that if there was a lot of people in an event at this location, you can almost guarantee there'll be parking in that parking lot.
I think that's been the problem.
Comment. This issue has come up before the Planning Commission previously with Fargo Brewing. And if I remember correctly, they had made an arrangement to have parking to the west of your parking lot. And so that seems to have alleviated some of the problems with Fargo Brewing. So if we look at, we can't actually see the store on this map, but there's quite a bit of parking area on the just bordering University. that's seldom used. It's not the south lot where the deliveries are made, but it's the one to the east. And so, as Scott was referencing the good neighbor concept, would it be within consideration of the company to think about that east side as potential arrangement for parking?
Well, I think I can represent that I don't believe there's been any overture made on behalf of the developer for any such type of proposal. What I can say is that the company obviously has the rights. They required that size parking lot for their customers. And I couldn't say standing here today that they're prepared to give up some of their parking lot. It's their parking lot. And so I really couldn't say that they're going to give up some of it.
Any further questions?
You know, I appreciate that. I shop at that grocery store, and so I'm kind of curious. There's a few other businesses around there. What's the practice for sort of policing their property if they don't want other customers there?
The practice of family fare?
Yeah.
They have security cameras, and there are signs that indicate that it's for family fare parking only.
I mean, and so you don't think that'll be adequate in the future if this restaurant goes into place?
Well, so far it hasn't been adequate. The signs have been run over. They've recently had problems with nails and screws in their parking lots at both of the entrances. And so, no, it doesn't appear to be working very well.
You know, I struggle because I shop at that family fare every once in a while, and it's my North Star coffee stop in the morning sometimes. And so I'll probably also go to this restaurant, but I could see my wife and I, date nights these days, usually it's an errand and dinner. And so I could see us grocery shopping and going to dinner and staying in the family fare parking lot. And I guess, to me, I see that as beneficial to have more, you know, economic locations in the same area where you can park in one spot and do multiple things. And so, yeah, I guess I'd like to see a situation where that's seen as a benefit to both businesses, but you're right, it's not fair if it's one owner, then you're both benefiting from it, and so.
And I appreciate that, and I thank you for that, Commissioner Schneider. I think that one of the issues you have is that you do have different people who are coming to restaurants and places like the Brewing Company. And so some people might be like you and your wife who might go shopping at the grocery store as well as getting their dinner, and others may not have the same respect for the parking lot.
Put your grocery bags in the front seat. So, any other questions? Anybody else from the public wish to address this issue for or against? All right, I'm going to close the public comment period. Any additional discussion, commissioners? We ready to act? We have a motion.
Well, I've got a question. Is, you know, we have got this zoned as downtown mixed use, and maybe it was, you know, folly to think that this is a good idea when it was rezoned, knowing that there was no place for people to park a car. And there's very little location there, and it's certainly going to have an impact on the neighboring businesses. I really, and maybe the developer here or the owner is going to have a resolution for this, but unless it's a lot more than 8 parking spots, I can see it's still going to be a problem. And I really would like to see the owner go do some negotiation with the neighboring business, because I think they could probably work something out that would benefit both of them. And financially for Spartan Nash is probably a rental agreement, and then also for this business. So I think it would be a great addition in that neighborhood. I absolutely believe it would be. But I have concern about that parking issue, and I think they would absolutely be, you'd have those customers for that business being in that lot all the time.
All right. Do I have a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to accept the findings and recommendations of staff.
Do I have a second?
I have an alternative motion.
So motion dies for lack of a second.
I'd move for a continuance so that, so that we could see, have the owner come back and after having some discussions on future parking, so we know better what we're talking about here.
Do I have a second to continue? Okay, it's been moved and seconded to continue. Time certain to be next month?
Well, next month, absolutely.
All right, Nicole.
At the risk of being disrespectful, I want to advocate and maybe make sure the applicant understands that we did have a kind of site plan faux pas issue. It's not your problem, it's our problem. But we did have an oversight, and the applicant is very much on a time crunch. I would advocate that the zoning was DMU. We zoned the DMU, and with zero parking as part of that, with the understanding as our downtown parking management system is that we kind of, how do I say, isolate that issue out into ownership, private property, private owners coordinating it. If this is a room full of neighborhoods talking about parking on its streets, that would maybe be a different discussion. But I think understanding that there is private parking agreements happening all the time in downtown, and the importance of this in our neighborhood commercial business, and number of people that would be walking to this, walking from campus, et cetera. Just wanted to make that pitch again. I know it's probably ill timing and disrespectful to your process, but wanted to just advocate because we did have a staff review site plan issue on this, and the applicant is being very patient with us.
Clarify one other thing. The, to take off the conditional overlay really doesn't affect the parking issue whatsoever, right? Just to address that issue, so in case somebody thinks that has anything to do with the parking?
No, the conditional overlay has nothing to do with the parking.
It's
With
strictly
downtown
the
mixed,
setback on the building.
correct. With downtown mixed use, they could build this building 100-foot tall.
Right. Okay. Okay, we have a motion and a second to continue to next month's meeting. Roll call vote.
Is there any other discussion amongst?
Or any other discussion?
Well, I guess just to clarify with the conditional overlay, it does, if we accept the findings as they are and eliminate the conditional overlay, that would allow them to build up higher, which would impact the number of people who are going to be patrons to that business, which would impact the parking. So maybe not directly the parking, but indirectly it affects the parking, correct?
The conditional overlay has nothing to do with the height of the building, it's strictly a setback from the north property.
It's strictly the setback,
Yes.
okay.
So, oh, do you mind if I make a comment? So you're correct, the conditional overlay does talk about height. There's a 45-foot height restriction as part of this conditional overlay. But as part of this project, residential protection standards do apply. And since the project is next to, within 150 feet of single-family dwelling, there is a height restriction that applies in the LDC.
Okay.
So maybe just to oversight, what's allowed by right today is basically everything that you see in their site plan other than the setback.
If I may briefly,
Out of order for the moment. Not you. Any further discussion amongst us?
Well, I'm not sure what I'm getting from the planning staff is that there was a snafu that resulted in this getting delayed getting here. And it kind of followed up the timeline for the developer to do their project, and now they're kind of in a time crunch, and by delaying this, it further exacerbates that situation. On the other hand, you know, that's not our doing as a commission. I'm not sure that we should have to worry about that.
But we also shouldn't have to worry about the parking situation either, being this is DMU.
True. But you can't separate the fact that
They don't,
it's
you know,
there.
anything downtown can go up and
Yeah.
they don't care where you park. So we have a motion in front of us to continue, we can vote whatever you want to vote. Roll call vote.
Schneider,
Aye.
Sherling,
Yes.
Stoffren,
Aye.
Holtz,
No.
Tasa,
Aye.
Morgan,
Aye.
Gunkelman.
Nay. Motion carries. So we're directing the applicant to come back next month with some kind of parking arrangement?
To give us an understanding of what their parking resolution is going to be.
Okay. Moving on to the next item on the agenda. Let's see, item number 5.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Item number 5 on your agenda is titled West 29, 7th edition, and it's located at 4180 24th Avenue South and 4143 26th Avenue South here. The applicant is requesting a minor subdivision plat, which would replat 2 existing lots into 3 new lots. So these are the 2 existing lots. Here are the proposed 3 new lots. Proposed lot 3 is an existing office that draws access off 26th Avenue South. And proposed lots 1 and 2 will be the site of future office buildings. Proposed lot 1 will have access off of 24th Avenue South, and proposed lot 2 will gain access to 24th Avenue South through an ingress egress easement along proposed lot 1. The zoning will remain the GC, general commercial zoning. Rob Lingstead with Matrix Properties is here to answer any questions, but as of now, staff finds that all criteria have been met, and we are recommending approval, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
All right, any questions for staff? See no questions. I invite the applicant to speak if need be.
Thank you. Rob Linkstead with Matrix and Crown Point Properties. Could you put the slide up with the 2 more back? Oh, 1 forward now. Actually, we're building 2 new office buildings on that vacant, so we'll have 3 office buildings on that site. It's mostly just a housekeeping thing. The Land Development Code, which really helps us, allows us to plat and zone larger lots, and then we subdivide it using meets and bounds descriptions. We never know what size office buildings we're going to be able to put on or sell or keep. So this gives us a lot of flexibility. And what we're just proposing now is to take those meets and bounds descriptions and zone them into lots and blocks, which makes it easier for the city, makes it easier for us. And so it's just a housekeeping thing. So answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions for the applicant?
Kind of nice to have a simple one, isn't it?
It is nice.
I don't think there's any
See no-
protests.
I'll open up the public comment period. See nobody, I'll close the public comment. Any additional discussion, commissioners, are we ready to act?
There's plenty of parking too.
I'll make the motion as outlined in the staff report.
Is there a second? Second. It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote, please.
Schirling,
Yes.
Morgan,
Aye.
Schneider,
Aye.
Holtz,
Aye.
Stoffren,
Aye.
Tasa,
Aye.
Gunkelman.
Aye, motion carries. All right, moving on to item 6.
Commissioners, item number 6 on your agenda is titled Bond Tax Second Edition. It's located at 1807 16th Street South. The applicant and owner is Fargo Public School District. So this section of the Block 12 is Lewis and Clark Elementary. The subject property at 1807 is the park to the south of the school. The applicant is requesting a zone change to go from the single-family SR2 to the PI, Public and Institutional Zoning District. That would bring it into conformance with the school. The SR2 district is allowed here, but the PI zoning district is intended to accommodate public services such as schools. To date, staff has received several inquiries about the property and the proposed zone change, and in your packet, you'll see one note of opposition. Jackie Gapp is here with the Fargo Public Schools to answer any questions that you might have, but at this time, staff finds that all criteria have been met, and we are recommending approval of the zone change. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for staff? Seeing none, do we have any questions for the applicant? Seeing none, we'll open for public comment. Seeing none, we'll close the public comment. Any additional discussion, commissioners, or are we ready to act?
I move to approve of the recommended motion in the staff report.
Is there a second?
I second.
It's been moved and seconded. Let's see, it's moved and seconded. Roll call vote, please.
Holtz,
Aye.
Schirling,
Yes.
Morgan,
Aye.
Schneider,
Aye.
Stoffren,
Aye.
Tasa,
Aye.
Gunkelman.
Aye, motion carries. Let's see, and I think that wraps us up. Any other discussion? Or Rocky will carry the gavel next month because I will be out of town, so we're at his mercy.
Whatever happened to this one?